Good morning. This is Dan and Lee and our Sunday class. With the life of Christ in stereo. Whoa, 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 whoa. And this is our 4th of July edition. Isn't that wonderful, Miss Lee?
Yes, it is. One of my favorite holidays of the year.
I tell you, this is the time.
And not because it's the 4th of July, it's the day of independence.
Independence Day. So that means you're independent of me.
No, I'm independent of the king.
You had to think about that.
I had to think how to say that nicely.
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
I said, no, I'm independent of the king.
I just looked at your face and it was so funny.
Like, how do I answer that question?
How am I going to keep him from being mad at me? But I'm just saying that,
I'm going to say something nice here.
So it's not the
4th of July holiday.
Oh, so the 4th of July doesn't mean that a woman has to be independent from her husband.
No.
See, that's feminism.
Well, I'm not a feminist.
I know, but
I am an independent person.
You're very independent.
I'm very independent.
You're a Proverbs 31 woman.
I strive to be that. I know.
No, you are that.
You're
amazing.
I strive to be that.
You're 98.99%.
All right, good. I knew I wasn't 100% yet.
So, but it's isn't that an interesting concept? Because see, in our civil society, there are groups that take this concept of freedom and make it into anarchy. I can do anything I want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Oh yeah, that's not what freedom is.
Yeah, and that comes from
freedom is not just that you can do whatever you feel like doing at the moment. That's not freedom.
That's right. Because why is that? But why is it God doesn't design the world so you can do anything you want as long as you feel good about it?
Well, because first of all, we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then we love our neighbor as ourselves. That's so important. And if you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, you're going to do what He wants you to do as told to us through the Bible.
So are you saying that sometimes our feelings don't do what God wants us to do?
Pretty much all the time. I'm speaking personally. Pretty much all the
time. No, I think you could speak for universal, absolute in humanity.
I mean, okay, here's a good personal example. Yesterday, I'm having trouble with my neighbors who don't want to really be good neighbors, and I'm trying to be a good neighbor. And they just let their dogs out to go poop in my yard and run. Now, my feelings...
Now, you're using this bad language here.
What? Oh. I could have used something else, but that's acceptable.
I guess poop in your yard is okay.
Poop in your yard.
Yeah.
So, in trying to be a good neighbor to them, I told her, I said, you need to have those dogs on a leash. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's
the rule in the community we live in. Yeah.
And because I pick up my dog's poop, I don't expect other people to pick it up.
And then you got second rule is you got to pick it up.
Yeah, and you're supposed to pick it up. But first of all, as the dogs ran out and she let them out. They ran right in my yard and started pooping. And then she saw me. And she went and hid. Yeah, we found it many times.
Now, why would a human being hide?
Just because I'm standing out there.
But what is it internally that makes them
do
that? Yeah, that's right.
Guilt.
See,
Guilt.
They're guilty of their sin because they're feeling. She felt it was her. She knew she loved her dogs. I don't think she hates her dogs. I don't think she hates her family. I don't think she hates her kids.
Probably not.
I think they're fairly good people. They have crosses on their cars, and they try to represent the Lord. But the thing is, they violated the civil society, okay?
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes in with these things. If you do what you feel, then you end up, what you feel is fine for you, like your neighbor here felt it was fine. She didn't have to work, she didn't have to go out, she didn't have to walk, she didn't have to get a bag, she didn't have to run around. She could just let him out the door.
Well, my feelings were I felt like picking up the poop and throwing it back at her.
But that's a culture of a rural culture. In rural culture, you just open the door
let them out. Who let the dogs out?
We should have had that song playing here. Yeah,
there we go.
But
don't judge me on my singing.
Don't judge me on who let the dogs out.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
But see, in rural culture, and I come from a rural culture, so I understand this probably more than some people do. Like Miss Lee, she's mainly a city girl.
Yeah, I grew up in city
And
girl.
even worse than that, she was raised mainly on an army basis,
which has a lot of rules and regulations.
Which is really the rules,
Yeah.
you know. And you can get your dad thrown out of the army for what you do.
Yep.
So there's a lot of pressure on the children. So there's a tendency on her side to be a little bit more legal on this.
Yeah.
And why don't they understand? And on my side, there's a tendency. I understand this, and the people who won't let their dogs out. I understand it, and I understand why they think it's okay. But see, that's why we have to have civil society, and we have to have laws.
And it's
rules.
also a little different when you live out in the country and your
That's what I
dogs go
just
out
said.
and poop in
Isn't
the
that what
field.
I just said?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just explaining.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that you don't like going out there to get in your car and stepping in somebody else's
No,
dog
I
poop.
hate.
So,
Well, see, and that's
you know,
what we hate about this, because we have to go get in our car, and we step in their dog's poop.
Yeah.
So when you get closer together, you have to have more laws. When there was just Adam and Eve,
Or courtesies too.
yeah, well,
Not only laws, but courtesies.
yeah, there's
That's
all
the
that. And
courtesies
how do
of
you have? And the
civilization.
question we're dealing today, because this shows there's a war in civil society between cultures. Here you have this culture, more the rural culture. You let your dog out, he runs. And over here we have the city culture, and particularly the military culture. I bet on the military base, you couldn't let your dog out at all.
Yeah, I think it was like here. You could walk. You know, it's been such a long time ago.
Yeah.
I remember always walking our dog, or
Yeah.
it was on some type
Very
of lead in the backyard.
regimented.
You know, you didn't just open the door and let him run.
You didn't let your dog out
No,
because
you know.
the military police shows up at your door.
And especially if you lived on base, which is what we're talking about,
Yeah.
you had to have papers that showed your dogs were all up on their
Mm.
shots and registrations. I
Yeah.
mean, it was,
And they inspected
it's real strict. Oh,
because
yeah.
it was their property. Everything was owned by the military.
Yeah, the government owned it.
Now, that's a culture of kind of a king. The military's kind of has a commander-in-chief, and he owns everything. You got to obey him.
Right.
And we've done seminars with military people on military bases. And when I first started doing this, I didn't understand that as well as they helped me understand. Wait a minute. We are officers, and these were officers. We're officers in the military, so we cannot be insubordinate to the commander-in-chief,
yeah.
which is the king.
The
you know,
commander of the base.
in a sense, what we did in
Right.
America, we shifted from a king, but we still had to have, in a sense, a king of the military.
Mhm.
And so we limited his power. But this is what is so amazing about this day. And everybody wonders why we're talking about poop, why we're talking about dogs, why we're on 4th of July. Well, the reason is because it has to do with the civil society. And all through history, people,
And how does this relate to the life of Christ in stereo?
well, and we're heading there.
I know we are.
You made me lose my thought. The reason this is so important is where does the law come from? That's the real question. And all through history,
Who decides whether your dog can poop in my yard
That's right.
or not?
Who
Who decides
Who
whether
decides?
I can put a fence up?
Yeah.
Who makes that decision?
my feelings, my
Mm-hmm.
arbitrary laws that I create, a king, people vote on it, and if 51% vote that we should die,
They're going to come out and shoot us.
they can come out and shoot us.
Or how
see-
about in the Wild West? If one guy got mad at you and you threw beer in his face, he'd shoot you and you're dead.
Well, that would be
You
the law of the West.
the law
It
of
was
the
called
West.
the law of the
It
West.
was different.
And it was kind of a law that was based in not dissing somebody. That's
Yeah,
kind of the
yeah.
law of the ghetto, the law of the
Yeah.
West, law of the ghetto. You don't what does diss mean? I just blanked out.
Disrespect.
Disrespect somebody. And disrespect is a relative term, so nobody
Yeah.
knows what it means. So
I can be disrespected.
if I just
and
walk by you the
dis-
wrong way,
Yeah.
you disrespect me, I
Yeah.
turn around and shoot you.
I don't like your music.
So,
that's disrespectful.
How do we deal with this? And all through history, we usually have come up with, and as cultures develop, you had Adam was the king because he was the first,
Hmm.
and then you had families, and the head of the family was the king, and he would rule the family, and that's still some traditions have that.
Kind of
And-
think of Abraham, the father
Yeah,
of all
yeah.
nations. He was
And then
kind
you
of
had
head.
tribes, and as that father died off, then the tribe kind of became the king, and they voted in different ways. They formed in different ways. And then after that, we developed nations. And the Bible tells us that God establishes nations,
Mm-hmm.
and nations are very important, and they need to have the borders of the nation where their jurisdiction fits in. And this brings us to current events.
Well, a great example of nations with borders is the Wall of China. It was built, I don't know how.
But there's a
couple
current
thousand years
event,
ago.
a very current event that you brought up earlier, the Brexit thing.
Brexit.
Brexit, I always say it wrong, I guess. But that is all about, is there no borders? You know, and
All those countries want to be together and just
and
have
that's-
flow
that's kinda-
here and there.
that's what they wanted to do. But what happens? They end up with a dictator, which is kind of become Germany.
Yeah,
and-
they have kind of
and the-
taken that role upon themselves.
And the
for some reason.
British have been dissed, you could
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
They have been, and the borders are open. So now Islam is just flowing up into England and all over Europe because there's no border. So all they got to do is get in one place. And so they don't believe in freedom. They believe in Sharia, which they can kill anyone who's a kafir. And everybody in England's a kafir. A kafir is an unbelieving Islam. It's somebody that isn't
An infidel.
an infidel.
Infidel,
Somebody
yeah.
isn't believing in the
In
Quran
Islam, yeah.
and Muhammad.
Right.
So we have a situation over there where there needs to be civil order, but a civil society. And how do we do that? That's very, very difficult. And that's why we have the Declaration of Independence.
For the United States of America.
That's right.
The
Because
day that we celebrate.
we came up with a solution that took over 2,000 years, that came really from the Creator, actually even farther than that, back to the Creator. Because I want you to read, Lee, the beginning of this declaration, because
Okay.
it's called the Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. This is an amazing document because it's solving. How do you solve the poop problem? How do you solve the neighbor coming and taking your garden after you planted it?
Well, just think if it wasn't dogs, if it was cattle or bison.
Yeah.
Mm,
How do you solve the rustler problem? How do you solve people coming in and raping your wife? How do you solve all these problems?
Drunken people
That's
rolling
called
down the street.
civil society. And civil society must have government. And that's why God, the Bible tells us, God establishes government and he establishes borders. Those are two very important things. And here in America, because of Christianity and Judaism, which believes in the individual, the group does not have absolute power. In other words, because if my family, say I'm a father and I have 3 children, and that means it's 5-1. And we would always have this discussion. I remember back when the kids were, this isn't a democracy.
4-1, 3 children.
Yeah, you could vote. You can all get together and they'd say, well, we're going to vote on it. I said, well, you can vote on it all you want to, and I appreciate your opinion and I'll think about it, but I'm the head of the house. And in other words, in a household, the father's the head. He has
and
final authority.
that's so important in marriage too, that, I mean, like I said before when we started, I'm very independent and an independent thinker.
Oh,
but
you are
I
extreme.
know.
It's good you're married to me.
I
It's such a blessing to
better
you
be a
that you're
good thing we've been married
to
a
me.
long time. I know that in the end, you are the head and will make the final decision.
And do
Now,
I make them
many-
always perfectly?
Oh no, you don't.
Oh, well, you were supposed to say
Oh yes.
yes.
Oh yes, perfect. No, you don't. But the point I'm trying to get over is that in a marriage, when a wife understands that and submits to that, oh yes, I know feminists hate that word submit, but I have the
No.
ability to state what I think. Like if you want to do something, I may give you the reasons why I don't think that's right, and you think about it, and then you make your decision.
And you may prod me. You may continue.
Yeah.
See, it isn't just a one-time. Well, I think you're wrong, and that's it.
No, we discuss
It's a
lot
constant,
of stuff.
and
yeah.
that's where a good king, you could say, head of a household, is kind of like a king. And that's why in the Bible it says we're a kingdom of priests. We're priests and king. I'm a priest because I'm under God, representing Jesus, and I am the temple of the Holy Spirit, and therefore, but I'm also a king of my household. And under that, a wise king listens and thinks about and takes in many counselors. And the one that is most important, I remember I went to a Bible study one time. And in this Bible study, I liked the men. It was a men's Bible study. And I liked the Bible study. It was really good. And then one day they said, well, this is for the men only, and you can't tell your wives what we say here. And I said, what? I can't tell my wives what? Well, yeah. No, we have to. You have to. What's in the Bible study stays in the Bible study. I said, what?
Well, you're going to Las Vegas.
I
or
said,
something?
you want me to make a covenant with you that I keep things from the only person in the whole world that cares about me more than anybody else, and that has my best interest at heart and has my back? You're nuts. And they got really mad at me because I wouldn't make the covenant to keep it within the men. Now, they were trying to solve a problem, and I understood their problem. They had a lot of gossipy wives, and they would go home and tell their wives, and the wives would gossip about each other, and that's a problem. But that's a different problem, because my covenant is with my wife, not with my Bible study, not with my church. It isn't higher than my relationship with my husband and my wife. And the truth is what determines all that stuff.
And as a wife, you have a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of authority over things. Your husband depends on you. But when you undermine that and you sneak and you do things, or let's just say you have children and the husband says, no, you can't do that. And the wife says, oh, it's okay, honey, you go ahead and do it. I'll cover for you.
Oh, that's one of the worst
That
things
is
to do
just
with
horrible.
children.
And I know we had a lot of young people that lived with us, young adults that lived with us for a while as, our kids were growing up. And they would ask us something, and I'd say, well, let me check with Dad or Dan on that. And
yeah, because the kids always tried to divide us.
Oh, yeah.
See, the first rule of kid is divide mom and dad.
Yeah.
The first rule of mom and dad is don't let the kids divide you.
And it's just, and so it would come to the point where people would ask one of us something, about a problem, and they'd say, well, that's exactly what your husband said, or that's exactly what your wife said, or that's exactly what Dad said, because we were of one mind and together. And if we didn't know, if it was something that we didn't know for sure, then we'd say, wait until I talk to the other person.
Right.
But wives, you have got to do that, because if you don't, you're going to have discord and
that's part of the civil society, and that's part of the discord in our civil society, because we violated this principle of the Declaration. And let's read this first paragraph, because we have just taken up so much time talking about all the poop issues.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them.
Stop right there. This is so important.
What is that? The laws of nature.
The laws of nature and nature's God.
That's in our Declaration of Independence?
Yeah, this is so powerful. Because the laws of nature, as you go into the history of this phrase, these were the ideas that you begin to discover that people had studied. Are there things that are truly true truth within nature? Just like the law of gravity. That's a law of nature.
Yes, I've often said I'm glad that God gave us gravity, or we'd all be in trouble.
Well, one of the laws of nature that these people believed was that all are sinful and fall short of the glory of God. Now, that was also a law of God, but they could look within nature and see everybody's messed up. Now, Lee and I are watching this show right now, and it's quite interesting, and I don't want to go too much detail on it. What's it called again?
Hell on Wheels.
And it's about building the railroad across the United States in the 1800s. And the one theme that comes through this show is this, that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And in the show, you see it from nature. You see the nature of man is to want when he wants it, and try to suppress the other man. That is what observation of thousands of years of political history have shown. That's what they mean by the laws of nature. So man will suppress other men. There will rise up kings that will suppress. The king will overthrow the law. The king will do what he wants. The greedy will do this. There's always that. But then there's the laws of God, which these people believe came from the Bible.
Well, I think the way they say here, nature's God, they realize there's laws of nature, but God even rules those laws.
Yeah.
He is over those, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's go on.
A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
So this is a very important document, because here our founding fathers did not have a rebellion. They had a legal separation. This is very much like a wife who's being beaten by her husband appeals to the law for a divorce. Now, there's no court, so they appeal to the laws of nature and nature's God. And in the Bible, it gives the right for that divorce. And in the laws of nature, it gives the right for that divorce. So they show this very clearly. And this is the foundation of our law. This is the foundation of America. But go on.
Okay. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
Okay, this is a very important concept. These people believe in truth.
Truly true truth?
Truly true truth. They did not, our founding fathers had a Christian view, and that developed over thousands of years, and a Jewish view, which made it 3,000, 4,000 years.
We call it Judeo-Christian
That's
view.
why we're called a Judeo-Christian culture.
Mm-hmm.
And there is things that are truly true. This isn't true for me. This isn't true for you. This isn't true for now. It is true. And it is self-evident. In other words, it is so clear that everybody's messed up and there's problems and we need laws. Yes.
Okay, and here, as we go on, we hold these truths to be self-evident, and here's the truths.
This is one of the key truths,
out there in your face.
Out there in your
face.
face.
That all men are created equal.
Okay, wonderful. Because here, the word men did not just mean man.
It meant mankind.
It meant mankind.
Which
and that's
men
how
and women.
That's how they used it. That's how the Bible uses it. It's children of Adam.
Yeah.
And that they're created. This word is so key. Now, there's another, well, we'll finish this sentence.
Okay, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Now, endowed, do you know what that means?
Well, it means given to you freely. It's a gift.
It's a gift to you.
It's a gift.
But it's yours. You got to take it. You got to claim it.
Mm-hmm.
And see, all people had this gift, but not all people claimed it. Because not all people had the intellectual maturity or the biblical wisdom to understand that God had given them this liberty that was from their unalienable rights. Now, it goes on and names some of these unalienable rights.
Well, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Now, here is a very key, and I guess this is probably about as far as we're going to get in this today. But
we've talked that much already?
We've talked too much.
We could talk a lot.
But this idea of life. Now, the question this brings to abortion. If we enacted the Declaration of Independence as a constitutional amendment, it destroys abortion. Because we know now scientifically that a child is an individual in the womb. He isn't his mother. He just is an incubator, just like a home is an incubator. A child can't live without a home. But a child in a womb also is, we have pictures of children at the conception, this just glowing, this when the sperm and the egg come together, life begins. We see that in a test tube. Now, that doesn't mean that's science is absolute. That means it is the laws of nature confirm that the individual baby in the womb is an individual, and we know it's a human because anybody that ever worked on a farm, I always used to ask the kids, I said, well, our llamas are pregnant. You think they're going to have pigs? And they'd laugh. They said, no, they're going to have llamas. So what do you think that? Well, llamas always have llamas. Pigs always have pigs. And that's the point. And that Genesis chapter 1, that comes from the laws of nature's God, where God said in Genesis chapter 1, and they reproduce after their own kind. This is a biblical revelation that is consistent with the Bible. So life is there. Liberty. Liberty is an interesting word because in the New Testament it says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty gives us the ability. See, God has given to the individual the ability to even say no to God. That's what Adam did.
We call that free won't.
We call it free won't.
Yeah.
Most people call it free will.
Mhm.
Well, will is that you want something and you can make it. Well, you can't make something out of nothing.
Mhm.
But one thing you can do that is very big is you can say no to God. And you have the freedom to do that. The problem is...
That's why we're not robots.
That's why we're not
human
robots.
beings.
And that's why we have liberty to say no, even to good.
God loved us so much
Yeah.
that He gave us the ability to tell Him
Yeah.
no.
Because He doesn't want robots. He wants people to love Him
Right.
and follow Him out of love. And this is why the Bible story is very much a love story. And we post that. It's the love letter. The Bible is the love letter to us people. But,
And the pursuit of
okay,
happiness.
this is such an important word here. Modern libertarians have taken this and changed it. See, you've got a creator here. You've got that. There's the laws of the creator. That there's the Bible. There's the whole idea that God creates life and therefore you have life. There's liberty within the biblical realm. But this pursuit of happiness really is a borrowed word from the Greeks, but it came down all through Christian history. And pursuit of happiness is pursuing the good life, because these people believe if you did good, you would be happy. That was the concept. Now, modern man has said, well, I can do anything I want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. That comes from the libertarian movement, which is anarchy. In other words, the individual is absolute. No, the individual is under God. And there's a law, even if there's no civil society. There's a moral law. And that's very interesting in this series we're watching, Hell on Wheels. You see this theme running through this story because some of the characters have character. You see, and some of them don't have character. You see this theme of pursuing happiness. And the ones that are pursuing happiness in the good life are more on a biblical realm. Now, not perfect. Biblical doesn't mean you're sinless.
And this show is a very adult show.
Oh, it's not for children,
It's
no.
not for children.
It's a very tough.
very
It's
adult.
tough. It's not gross or anything, but
It has
it's-
lots of stuff
it's
in it
very
that you
well
don't want
done
kid,
for
you don't
adults,
want
okay.
kids to see.
But this pursuit of happiness is such a big deal, and it is the divide between the libertarians and what I call the George Washington
And so
Republican.
bringing it around to what we started with, I can let my dogs run wherever they want.
If you feel like it.
I don't want to pick up their
And
messes.
see, that brings
Yeah.
it around to the issue is, are my feelings absolute? No, that destroys culture.
Mhm.
That makes enemies of neighbors. Is God's law absolute? Do we need a civil society? Now, it goes on here in this sentence. These are three: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Some believe they should have had property in here. That's later developed in the Declaration of Independence or in the Constitution. But here it goes on. There needs to be a securing of these rights on earth. These are rights. In other words, they're yours. And you will feel violated if someone takes your life. You will feel violated if someone takes your liberty. You will feel violated if someone takes your ability to pursue happiness, a good life.
And wouldn't we highly recommend that people read through the Declaration of
Oh,
Independence?
yeah, you
It is
should.
such a wonderful
At least once a year,
document.
you should read it to your family. Yeah. But
and,
go on.
and study it.
Go on. We're going to read a little more.
Okay, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
This is such a radical concept because in history, the tribe was absolute. Okay? In other words, whatever the tribe said, if they said it, you had to do it. And they said you died, you died. Here, it's taking the just rights to the individual, to the consent of the governed.
Yeah, you have to have governments instituted by man.
And this is where elections came from.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's more than one individual. Absolutely. That's why you have an election. And that's why you also have a constitution, which they formed a little later. The Constitution limited government. That's why you got to have a Constitution that limits government, because it will gobble up individuals.
Well, this is what this next part is saying.
And individuals will gobble up and become kings if they can. So because then this brings us to what we were talking about last week. We live in a war zone. We're fighting the world, the flesh, and the devil. And the philosophy of the world is that you should just follow the king. You should obey whatever he says. And the Bible does not say that. It is not there.
Well, it says when they become destructive, you need to do something about
But
it.
let's go ahead and finish this.
Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends,
are
the consent
the
of the
pursuit
government.
of happiness,
Right.
the consent of the government,
Life, liberty, and the pursuit
liberty,
of happiness.
life, yeah.
It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it.
In other words,
And to
you're not a
institute new
rebel.
government.
You're not a rebel if you oppose civil society or civil government or a family. Say, let's take it for instance, family. If a dad is having incest with his daughters, that is a violation of God's law. The laws of nature, we know that causes destruction within the genetic pool.
Yep.
And we also know the laws of God. So we have to have a way of appeal to deal with that. You have in a nation, when a certain group of people try to own another group of people, which is what we had in America, which was actually started by a black guy in Virginia, started the slave markets, but it became a racial thing. And when that is the absolute, and the Civil War, actually Darwinism brought that in, that black people were inferior. They were not fully human. And that's so destructive. The idea that a human isn't fully human, therefore you can oppress them. This is such a destructive idea. And that's what we ended up fighting, a civil war to stop that. And basically 300,000 white people gave their lives for black people to be free. Now that wasn't the whole story, but it was a major part of it. So go
It was
on.
an important part, yeah. Okay. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. And okay, you're telling me something. And I
No, don't hit the
understand.
table.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was excited.
No.
Yes.
I'm patting her on the shoulder saying,
Don't hit
no,
the
no,
table.
she
in a
doesn't know what
minute.
I'm doing. She's hitting the table and the sound can
All right.
come through.
It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
So safety and happiness are very important. Now, what's interesting, we're gonna stop here because we've already run over, and I want to go down to the last paragraph of the Declaration, and I just want to let Lee sum this up because the Declaration sums it up, and we therefore. That's where the these representatives, which 30 of them signed this, and then many more followed it, said this.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence.
Now, the word divine providence was the word these people used to say God's protection.
We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And they did. And some of them lost their lives, some of them lost their fortunes, and many lost their honor in the war. And we honor them now, but in the time they were dishonored. So here we have the most important civil document, I believe, of history, apart from Moses' law that he brought down from the Ten Commandments. And this document is based in the Ten Commandments. But we're not going to go there today. But today is Independence Day. It's
Tomorrow's technically.
that's right. Technically, it's tomorrow.
The 4th.
Isn't it? So anyway, it is the time of the year in which it isn't just barbecue.
Isn't barbecue?
It isn't just fireworks. And see, we begin to worship the creature rather than the creator. And that's one of the problems here. When a nation does that, they begin to worship the creature rather than the creator. Miss Lee's going to read you that verse. It's in Romans.
Romans 1:25. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen.
And that's the issue of the battle, the culture war. In our society, there is a political movements, and basically it's the Democratic Party now, who are following secular thought and believe man is the absolute, and democracy, in other words, 51% of the vote, the people have absolute authority. Our founding fathers didn't believe that. They believed the consent of the governed, but they didn't believe it was absolute. The law did not come from individuals, it came from the Creator. And that is part of why we have such a pressure to get the Creator out of education, to get the Creator out of government, get the Creator out of the military. They want to secularize.
Out of science, out of schools.
And actually, this is what Sharia is all about, to get the Creator of the Bible, okay, the Christian God, and replace it with the Islamic God. So, and therefore free speech is lost, free press is lost, free assembly is lost. This is a battle of cultures. Just like in my neighborhood, there's a battle of cultures between the people that let their dogs out and poop in my yard and the people that keep their dogs on the leash and walk and pick up, trying to have a good and healthy civil society. That is what we're all about. Now, I could declare an independence here in my society, in my community, and move. I could just go somewhere else. Or I could buy everybody's house. Now, I can't solve all the problems, but I can appeal, and that's what the judges are for, and I will probably go and talk to the owners of the community. They own the park, and they're
kind of the governors.
They're kind of like the governor and the judge. They're everything combined.
Yeah.
It's a little like a plantation here. But again, I pay rent, and I have privacy here within. Even they will not come through my gate without asking. Because, see, in a civil society, private property is respected. And that's a core principle of the poop in my yard. It's a violation of my private property, which then is poisoning my property because it's bringing diseases in. And this is what God gives us laws for. It's because He loves us and He doesn't want us poisoned. He wants us to have a full and abundant life, as the Bible says, or as the Declaration of Independence says. What did it say there? It said, and I'm just blanking out on the word.
The beginning?
Yeah, up there it gave us that it's
No,
you're jumping down too far. Here, we're just trying to find it. No, you've got to go up to the beginning, okay? You quit doing so fast. And I'm sorry, self-evident.
Life, liberty, and the
pursuit of happiness. The good life, the right to
blank
pursue.
today.
I just went blank on this pursuit of happiness. Miss Lee usually remembers what I'm supposed to think.
I didn't know where we
So
were.
she wasn't listening. So we're at the end of today. What an amazing thing. We were able to extend our class because of your donations, and we so thank you, because some of our listeners have donated a little money. So we didn't have to stop at 30 minutes. We went over to 9, but we're going to try to keep these at 30 minutes. So this has been 39 minutes. But thank you for listening, and all those things help.
Happy Independence Day weekend.
And if you have any friends that would like to listen to our class, just either go and go to our webpage at oursundayclass.simplesite.com, and you can get a link to get our newsletter. Or also, you can forward that newsletter to your friends, and they can listen too. So thank you for listening, and we just enjoy doing this. It is our personal Bible study too, but it has become something we think
we like to share with you.
This has been Dan and Lee in our Sunday class. To get our newsletter, go to oursundayclass.simplesite.com and follow the links to the newsletter.